Now second lesson, periodic classification of elements. Now just revise, let us go through what we have studied previously. Now what are the types of matter? Matter is of three types. What are they? Elements, compounds and mixture. Now what is element? Supposing if I take an iron piece, then all the atoms of the iron piece is made up of same. Symbol of iron is what? Fe. So all the atoms of the iron piece are made up of Fe, 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 F. That means Fe. So all the atoms are made up of Fe only in an iron piece. If you take hydrogen gas, then all the atoms are made up of H2, H2, H2 and so on. So but in case of compound, it is not like that. If you take water, water is made up of two things. What are they? Hydrogen and oxygen. So compound is what? A compound is a substance which is made up of two or more elements, then it is said to be a compound. For example, in this it is made up of what? Hydrogen and oxygen. What is mixture? Let us take an example of mixture as tea. Now tea is made up of what? Water, tea leaf, milk and sugar. So the difference between elements and compounds are what? Element is made up of only one type of atom. It is made up of two or more types of atoms. Now difference between mixture and compound is what? Here it is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. The properties of hydrogen is what? It is a gas. Oxygen is what? It is a gas. But water, hydrogen and oxygen combine to form water. Water is what? Liquid. So the properties of the original substance is completely different from the properties of the compound formed from this original substance. Whereas in tea it is not like that. Tea is a mixture. Whatever the properties of water is there, whatever is the property of tea leaves is there, whatever is the property of milk and sugar is there. After mixing or making the tea, the properties are not lost. It retains its property. So the properties of mixture before combining and after combining remains the same. It is not lost. Now another difference between both of them are what? Hydrogen and oxygen always combine in the ratio of 2:1. That is, two atoms of hydrogen combined with one atom of oxygen. But that is not the case with tea. You can take as much amount of water, tea leaves, milk and sugar. It is not fixed how much water or tea leaves should be taken. You can take any proportion of tea leaves, water, milk and sugar. So you can take it in any proportion, but over here the proportion is fixed. You cannot change that proportion. So that is the difference between element, compounds and mixture. So in the lesson, whenever element is mentioned, you should come to know what is element. When they say about compound, you should know what is compound. When they say about mixture, you should know the meaning of mixture. Now this lesson is about the classification of elements. Now what are the types of elements? Elements are of three types. What are they? Metals, for example iron, then non-metals, for example hydrogen is a non-metal and both are element. This is metal, this is non-metal and both are element. And another type is there that is known as metalloid. Now what is a metalloid? Metalloid shows a characteristic or the properties. It shows the characteristics of both metals and non-metals, then it is said to be metalloid. An example of metalloid is arsenic. Now what are the smallest particle? What is the smallest particle of matter? It is known as atom. Now what is the difference between the molecules of elements and compound? Just now we had discussed that the molecules of element is always same. All the molecules are same only. It is made up of one type of substance, whereas the molecules of compound is made up of two or more types of atoms. That is the difference between molecules of elements and compounds. अभी मैटर कितने टाइप्स का बना है? एलिमेंट्स, कंपाउंड और मिक्सचर। एलिमेंट्स क्या होता है? अगर मैंने एक आयन पीस लिया तो इसके अंदर जो भी एटम है वो सब सेम रहेगा। सिंबल ऑफ आयन क्या है? Fe, तो इसमें सब Fe रहेगा। दूसरा एग्जाम्पल है हाइड्रोजन गैस। सिंबल ऑफ हाइड्रोजन क्या है? H। मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला ऑफ हाइड्रोजन क्या है? H2। तो इसमें हर एक मॉलिक्यूल जो किससे बना है? H2 से ही बना है। कंपाउंड क्या है? कंपाउंड जैसा एग्जाम्पल वाटर है। सो वाटर इज एग्जाम्पल ऑफ कंपाउंड। तो कंपाउंड में दो टाइप ऑफ वाटर में दो टाइप ऑफ एटम्स है। कौन सा है? हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन। सो जिसमें दो या दो से ज़्यादा टाइप ऑफ एटम रहता है उसको कंपाउंड बोलते हैं। मिक्सचर में भी दो या दो से ज़्यादा टाइप ऑफ सब्सटेंस रहेगा, उसको मिक्सचर बोलते हैं। अभी इन दोनों में क्या फ़र्क है? जो इसका जो प्रॉपर्टीज़ है, ओरिजिनल सब्सटेंस का प्रॉपर्टीज़ और कंबाइन होने के बाद उसका प्रॉपर्टीज़ एकदम अलग है। जैसा हाइड्रोजन है वो गैस है, ऑक्सीजन वो गैस है, लेकिन ये दोनों कंबाइन होकर वाटर बनता है, वो लिक्विड रहता है, तो उसका प्रॉपर्टीज़ एकदम अलग हो जाता है। इसमें ऐसा नहीं है, जो भी प्रॉपर्टीज़ ऑफ वाटर है, टी लीव्स है, मिल्क है, शुगर है, वो मिक्स करने के बाद भी वो वैसे ही रहता है, उसका प्रॉपर्टीज़ चेंज नहीं होता है, देयरफॉर इट रिटेन्स इट्स प्रॉपर्टी। Now what are the types of elements? Elements are metals। elements का अलग अलग टाइप कौन सा है? metals, नॉन मेटल्स और मेटलॉइड। ये सब elements है। तो ये हो गया मेटल और ये हो गया नॉन मेटल। मेटलॉइड क्या होता है? जिसका दोनों टाइप, मेटल्स और नॉन मेटल दोनों का भी प्रॉपर्टीज़ बताते हैं, उसको बोलता है मेटलॉइड। एग्जाम्पल आर्सेनिक। What is the smallest particle of matter? Smallest particle of matter is what? Atom. What is the difference between the molecule of element? Molecule of element और compounds के फ़र्क क्या है वो मैंने अभी बताया था। आयन में एक ही, जैसा कि मॉलिक्यूल ऑफ जो एलिमेंट्स है उसका एक ही टाइप रहता है, एक ही टाइप। जैसे इसमें हाइड्रोजन है, इसमें दो या दो से ज़्यादा रहेगा। जैसे पानी में सिर्फ दो चीज़ है, H और ऑक्सीजन। दैट इज़ द डिफरेंस बिटवीन मॉलिक्यूल्स ऑफ एलिमेंट्स एंड कंपाउंड्स। Now in 1800, 30 elements were known. Today, how many elements are known? Today, 118 elements are known. 118 elements are known. So from this, as a number of elements discovered went on increasing. So the scientists felt that it was necessary to classify these elements on the basis of their properties. Now before you start the classification, the next part is how the scientists classified. That is what is the next part of this lesson. But before you start the classification, you understand the meaning of atomic mass, which you have already studied in your younger standard, and atomic number. Atomic mass is also known as atomic mass number. Sometimes it is referred as only atomic mass. Now if you see sodium, in sodium there are 11 electrons. It has how many electrons? 11 electrons it is having. So how you distribute the 11 electron? In the first orbit there will be 2 electrons. In the next orbit 8 electrons. So 8 plus 2 became 10, only 1 is remaining, so that 1 will go in the next orbit. So how many electrons does the sodium has? 11 electrons. How much protons are there? Which is protons is also 11. And how many neutrons are there? Neutrons, that is 12. Now what is shown in this nucleus? This is a nucleus part. In the nucleus there is protons and neutrons. So protons and neutrons are there in the nucleus, and electrons are orbiting around the nucleus. Now what is atomic mass number? Atomic mass number is a total number of protons and neutrons. So over here it will be how much? 11 plus 12. That's equal to how much? 23. You can also write atomic mass number as total number of instead of protons you can also write electrons and neutrons. Why instead of protons you can write also electron? Because the number of protons and number of electrons are always in all atoms same only. Over here there are 11 electrons and 11 protons. So instead of, either you can say total number of protons and neutrons, or you can say total number of electrons and neutrons. So total number of electrons is 11, neutron is 12. The total is how much? 23. Now what is atomic number? Atomic number is what? Total number of protons, only protons, total number of protons. How many protons are there in this? Total number of proton is how much? 11. Or also you can write down total number of electrons, because the total number of electrons is also same, only 11. So what is atomic number? Either you can say that it is total number of protons, or you can say it is total number of electrons. So classification was based on this. It's important that you understand what is atomic mass and what is atomic number. In the beginning all the scientists tried to classify on the base of what? Atomic mass. So in the beginning all the scientists were trying to classify the elements on the basis of its atomic mass. Now the first scientist to classify the elements was Dobereiner. He was a German scientist and he classified in the year 1817. What did he suggest? That the properties of the elements was related to what? Atomic mass. It was related to the atomic mass of the element. I have already discussed what is atomic mass and what is atomic number. He made a group of 3 elements which had similar chemical properties. And he called this group of 3 elements having similar chemical property as triads. He arranged these 3 elements in increasing order of their atomic mass. And what he found when he arranged them in increasing order of the atomic mass, he found the atomic mass of the middle element, not third, of middle element is approximately equal to the atomic mass, mean of the atomic mass. It was approximately equal to the mean of the atomic mass of the first and the third element. Now what is the meaning of this? When he arranged the 3 elements having similar chemical properties, like for example lithium, sodium and potassium, he found that the atomic mass of the middle element was approximately equal to the mean of the first and the third element. तो 1817 में German scientist Dobereiner, he was the first, पहला scientist था जो elements को classify किया. उसने suggest किया कि एलिमेंट्स का जो प्रॉपर्टीज़ है वो किससे रिलेटेड है? एटॉमिक मास से रिलेटेड है. और उसने ग्रुप ऑफ 3 एलिमेंट्स बनाया, ग्रुप ऑफ 3 एलिमेंट्स हैविंग सिमिलर, जिसका प्रॉपर्टीज़, केमिकल प्रॉपर्टीज़ सिमिलर है. और ये ग्रुप ऑफ 3 एलिमेंट्स को क्या नाम दिया? ट्रायड्स. और ये एलिमेंट्स को इंक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर ऑफ द एटॉमिक मास में अरेंज किया, तो उसने क्या देखा, एटॉमिक मास, अभी जैसा ये ट्रायड्स है, एटॉमिक मास ऑफ द मिडल एलिमेंट, जो बीच वाला एलिमेंट है, इज इक्वल टू द मीन ऑफ द फर्स्ट और थर्ड वाला। फर्स्ट और थर्ड का मीन निकालेगा तो अप्रॉक्सीमेटली इक्वल टू द मिडल है। जैसे कि इधर लिथियम, सोडियम, पोटेशियम है, लिथियम का 6.9 है, सोडियम का 23 है और पोटेशियम का 39। अभी फर्स्ट और थर्ड को ऐड करेगा तो 6.9 प्लस 39.1 और डिवाइड बाई 2, देन व्हाट यू गेट 46.0 डिवाइड बाई 2। और जब इसको डिवाइड करते हैं 2 से तो इसका वैल्यू कितना मिलता है, 23। वैसे ही नेक्स्ट वाले में फर्स्ट और थर्ड को ऐड करो, 40.1 प्लस 137.3 divided by 2, you will get 177.4 divided by 2, which is equal to 88.7. 88.7, which is approximately equal to 87.6. The last one is chlorine, bromine and iodine. When he took the atomic mass of chlorine and iodine and added them together, that is 35.5 plus 126.9 upon 2, he got 162.4 divided by 2. When he added this and divided it by 2, the value was coming 81.2, which is approximately equal to 79.9. But Dobereiner's triad had one disadvantage. What was that disadvantage? He could not classify all the known elements into triads. So all were not following this rule. Some of the elements followed this rule, but some of them didn't follow. Now there is one question in that particular first page of the second lesson, that identify the Dobereiner's triad from the following groups of elements having similar chemical property. Now the first element is magnesium and the third one is strontium. Magnesium is 24.3 and strontium is 87.6. 111.9. When he divided 111.9 by 2, he got 55.95. So which is this calcium, the middle element, calcium is 40.1, which is very small compared to 55.95. It is not approximately equal. So the first one which they have given the question, magnesium, calcium and strontium, do not follow Dobereiner's triads rule. Now the next one, sulfur is 32.1, selenium is 79.0 and tellurium is 127.6. So when he added 32.1 and 127.6, he got 159.7, and when he divided 159.7 by 2, he got 79.85, which is approximately equal to the middle. So does it follow Dobereiner's triad? Yes, it does follows Dobereiner's triad. The last one is beryllium, magnesium and calcium. Now beryllium is 9.0 and the last one, calcium, is 40.0, 40.1. When he added, he got 49.1. When 49.1 was divided by 2, you will get 24.55, which is approximately equal to 24.3. So does the third three elements follow the Dobereiner's triad? Yes, it does follows the Dobereiner's triads. So the first one, no, it does not follow the Dobereiner's triads. Second one, yes, it follows the Dobereiner's triad. And the last one, yes, that also follows the rules of Dobereiner's triads. Now the next scientist to arrange the elements is his name was John Newland तो जो अगला साइंटिस्ट जो था जो अरेंज किया इन एलिमेंट्स को, उसका नाम था जॉन न्यूलैंड. ही वॉज एन इंग्लिश साइंटिस्ट. He also related the atomic mass of the element to with their properties, but he did it in a different way. He arranged in 1866, he arranged the elements in increasing order of their atomic mass. तो 1866 में ये साइंटिस्ट ने सब एलिमेंट्स को अरेंज किया. कैसे अरेंज किया? इंक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर. जैसे जैसा उसका एटॉमिक मास इंक्रीज होते गया वैसे वैसे वो अरेंज किया. ही स्टार्टेड विद द लाइटेस्ट एलिमेंट. He started with the lightest element. Which is the lightest element? Hydrogen. Lightest element hydrogen, and ended with which one? Thorium. तो उसने शुरुआत कौन से एलिमेंट से किया? सबसे लाइटेस्ट एलिमेंट जो कौन सा था? हाइड्रोजन. और ख़त्म किस में किया? थोरियम में. ही ऑब्जर्व्ड that the properties of the eighth element was similar to the properties of first element. तो उसने क्या ऑब्जर्व किया? जब इनको इंक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर में अरेंज किया, इंक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर ऑफ एटॉमिक मास में अरेंज किया, तो हर आठवां एलिमेंट का प्रॉपर्टी पहला एलिमेंट का प्रॉपर्टी से सिमिलर था. जैसे कि अगर इफ़ आई टेक लिथियम, सो फ्रॉम लिथियम विच इज़ अ एट्थ एलिमेंट, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So sodium is the eighth element, and the properties of lithium and sodium were very similar. Now if I take magnesium, which is the eighth element after magnesium, the eighth element after, not from magnesium, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So the eighth element is calcium. So the properties of magnesium and calcium were found to be similar. If I take fluorine, then the eighth element will be chlorine, and the properties of fluorine and chlorine are also similar. Remember, it is from magnesium, not after magnesium. If you count from here, you will get the eighth element, chromium, but from magnesium means you have to start counting from magnesium. So जब भी उसने समझो एग्जाम्पल लिथियम लिया, तो लिथियम से आठवां एलिमेंट कौन सा है? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. सोडियम आता है. तो सोडियम और लिथियम का प्रॉपर्टी सेम है. वैसे अगर समझो मैग्नीशियम से स्टार्ट किया, तो आठवां एलिमेंट कौन सा है? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. तो कैल्शियम और मैग्नीशियम का प्रॉपर्टी सेम है. वैसे अगर मैंने फ्लोरीन से स्टार्ट किया, तो आठवां एलिमेंट क्लोरीन आएगा, तो उनका प्रॉपर्टीज़ भी सेम है. ही ऑब्जर्व, ही कॉल्ड he compared this properties, not called, he compared this similarities to the octaves in music, he called the similarity in eighth, similarity in properties in eighth and the first element has law of octaves. तो उसने इस सिमिलैरिटी को किसके साथ कंपेयर किया? ऑक्टेव्स इन म्यूजिक. ऑक्टेव्स इन म्यूजिक का मतलब क्या है? जैसे कि 7 सुर है इंडियन म्यूजिक में, सा रे ग म प ध नी, इसको बोलते हैं ऑक्टेव्स इन म्यूजिक. और ही कॉल्ड द सिमिलैरिटी इन प्रॉपर्टीज. आठवां और फर्स्ट एलिमेंट का जो सिमिलैरिटी इन प्रॉपर्टीज है उसको क्या नाम दिया? लॉ ऑफ ऑक्टेव्स. Now what is the meaning of octaves in music? Octaves in music, in Indian music there are 7 notes in Indian music. What are they? Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni. Collectively these are known as what? Saptak. The frequency goes on increasing as we go from from sa to ni. So as we go from sa to ni, the frequency goes on increasing. The eighth, the sa which comes over here has a double frequency. The frequency of this sa is double than that of the original sa. So the frequency goes on increasing as we go from sa to ni, and the frequency of this sa is double than the frequency of the original sa. In Western music it is known as what? Do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti. Here also the frequency goes on increasing as we go from do to ti. And the frequency of this do, this do will be double the frequency, or the eighth do will be double the frequency of the original do. We create varieties of music by using this 7 notes of music, 7 notes of Indian music. Now what is the limitations found in Newland's octave? Limitation means disadvantage. Now this law was applicable only up to calcium. So this law was applicable तो डिसएडवांटेज न्यूलैंड ऑक्टेव का डिसएडवांटेज क्या है कि ये लॉ सिर्फ कैल्शियम तक पॉसिबल था, उसके बाद ये लॉ फॉलो नहीं होता था आगे का एलिमेंट्स में. सो दिस लॉ वाज एप्लीकेबल अप टू कैल्शियम. Now the next disadvantages is what? During his time 56 elements were known. So 56 elements were known. So Newland tried to accommodate all the 56 elements in this table. While doing this, he had to accommodate 2 elements in the same box. So he had to accommodate. So what is the second disadvantage? Second disadvantage क्या है कि उस ज़माने में कितना एलिमेंट्स पता था? 56 एलिमेंट. और न्यूलैंड ने सब 56 एलिमेंट इस टेबल में अरेंज किया. जब भी उसने अरेंज किया तो कभी कभी उसको 2 एलिमेंट, ही हैड टू अकोमोडेट 2 एलिमेंट इन एक बॉक्स में अरेंज कर दिया in one box. So 2 elements were accommodated in one box. For example, cobalt and nickel, and cerium and lanthanum. Next disadvantage is what? The properties of cobalt and nickel. Now where is cobalt and nickel placed? Under the note sa. So it comes under the note sa or do. And the cobalt and nickel, the properties of cobalt and nickel was completely different. From the properties of halogens. Now what is halogens? So what is halogen? Halogens are fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine are known as halogens. So the properties of cobalt and nickel was completely different from halogens. Fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine were non-metal, whereas cobalt and nickel was metal. And iron. तो तीसरा डिसएडवांटेज क्या है? कोबाल्ट और निकल जो सा नोट के अंदर आता था उसका प्रॉपर्टीज़ और हैलोजेंस बोला तो फ्लोरीन, क्लोरीन, ब्रोमीन, आयोडीन। इन फ्लोरीन, क्लोरीन, ब्रोमीन और आयोडीन का प्रॉपर्टीज़ एकदम अलग था कोबाल्ट और निकल से। कोबाल्ट और निकल जो था वो मेटल था और फ्लोरीन, क्लोरीन, ब्रोमीन, आयोडीन नॉन मेटल्स है। और आयन, द प्रॉपर्टीज़ ऑफ आयन was similar to cobalt and nickel, but it was placed far away from cobalt and nickel. They were placed along with oxygen and sulfur. So the properties of iron were similar to cobalt and nickel. How it was similar? This is also metal, this is also metal, but it was placed far away from cobalt and nickel under the node T, and the properties of iron was also different from oxygen and sulfur. Oxygen and sulfur are non-metal, whereas iron is a metal. The last disadvantages over here is what? Afterwards new elements were discovered and this new element did not fit in this table. So the new element which was discovered did not fit in this table. तो एक तो आयन जो था, आयन जो टी नोड के अंडर आता था उसका प्रॉपर्टीज़ और कोबाल्ट और निकल का प्रॉपर्टी एकदम सिमिलर है, मगर आयन को एकदम फार अवे दूर रखा गया कोबाल्ट और निकल से, और इसका प्रॉपर्टीज़ और ऑक्सीजन सल्फर का प्रॉपर्टीज़ भी सिमिलर नहीं था। ऑक्सीजन और सल्फर नॉन मेटल था और आयन जो था मेटल था। और लास्ट डिसएडवांटेज क्या है, आगे जब नया एलिमेंट डिस्कवर हुआ तो वो ये इस टेबल में फिट नहीं होता था, उनका प्रॉपर्टीज़ इस टेबल में मैच नहीं होता था, टैली नहीं होता था।